to tell us a little about Optimise Home and what you offer the clients?
Sure. So Optimise Home is an architecture and interior design service that we created specifically for homeowners. So what we've done, Gwen, is we've taken the traditional architecture and interior design services and packaged those in a way that lets people pick and choose only the stages of work that they need. So what that means is that rather than committing in full, to a massive fee, they can cherry pick the pieces they feel will be most beneficial for them. And all of our packages are priced upfront so people understand exactly what they have to spend before they commit. So it just gives them certainty in that respect.
Excellent. And what do you find are the biggest questions or the biggest things that people are asking at the moment?
Yeah, like it's fascinating. We did a little survey there 2 weeks ago, and I think the number one thing that was causing people concern was budget. So people are very uncertain, which makes complete sense. Just about how to allocate their budget. Are they getting value for money at this time? Should they wait? So a lot of uncertainty in that area. And then I think the thing we get asked the most questions about probably after that would be just help with laying out the house, with getting the house or the space or the rooms to function as best as they possibly can. So, lots of questions in particular around kitchens at this time. Lots of people planning kitchen refurbs.
Okay, and so what would be the top kind of 2 or 3 things that you would recommend people have or do in their kitchen if they're designing?
Yeah, so like a lot of the kitchen queries that we get is part of a slightly bigger project. So looking for that connection with the garden, small extension to the back, or just reconfiguring that almost open plan space. And especially now, I think when people have found themselves, all of the family in the house, all at the same time, those open plan spaces are they're being used very differently. So where before you would have had people occupying those spaces at different times of the day, now everybody's there all the time. And in a lot of instances, they're being used, for homeschooling when kids were still in school, for cooking, for working from home. So they're working very hard at the minute. So we're getting a lot of questions around how best to lay those spaces out. So I guess really, when it comes to the kitchen, it has to function well. Storage has to be a priority. And actually storage in that whole space is now critical. So a lot of people are going for built-in solutions, because that just means regardless of how much space you have, you can really maximize and optimize what you have, the space that you have, and get it to work really, really hard, which is great.
So give us an example of a bespoke built-in unit that you might suggest.
So in particular at the minute is stuff for working from home or kids working, doing schoolwork and things like that. So we've designed a lot where perhaps it might be an extension of the kitchen. So you can close it all off. And I think that's critical that, people need downtime as well. So they don't want to be staring at that desk if it is in their living space or their sitting room. So having the ability to close the doors over and conceal it and hide it is a really good tool. Another thing that we've done is lots of cupboards for people to keep all their kit and their iPads, iPhones, chargers, all that sort of thing. And that works really well as well, because again, it's that idea of out of sight, out of mind. So people can kind of create boundaries for themselves, which I think is important when they're doing absolutely everything from home.
Yeah, especially in that open plan space, isn't it?
Yeah,
I know a friend of mine has 4 children and she ends up going out to the car to take Zoom calls for work because it's the only place that she can get.
Difficult. It's very difficult.
So she's there, she says, with her cup of coffee in the car every time she uses Zoom because it's the only place she gets peace, which is interesting. You mentioned budget earlier on. Do your clients like to tell you what the budget is?
Well, we're sort of very upfront about asking and explaining why we need to know, because I think there is, it's a really good point. There is this idea that telling your architect or designer or builder how much you have to spend is a really bad idea. But unless we know what budget is available, we can't advise. So where we're looking at it from is we're trying to get people the absolute best value for the money that they have to spend, and to try and guide them to get the best results for what they have to spend as well. So depending on what that budget is, we're going to steer them in a particular direction. So it can be really soul destroying to find out, well, actually that wasn't the budget at all, because we would have been able to do something else, and we would have advised people differently. So it is very important that we understand the budget.
So they might end up with a pillar in their, you know, kitchen or extension or whatever, that if the budget was declared at the start mightn't have happened, or you might have been able to get extra windows and more light or various things. So
or different, exactly. So yes, it does have a big impact on the decisions we make early on. Yeah.
And is it all about extensions at the moment? Is it remodels? Where you know, do people make mistakes where they come and go, I want a big extension, and in actual fact they might need it, they're not using the house? How do you work that out?
Yeah, no, again, a brilliant point. So we find that a lot actually, where people get very frustrated, and especially now where it can feel very claustrophobic with everybody in the house, and they just sort of, the natural reaction is, I need more space. But actually what we try and encourage people to do is to really look at how they're using their home. So it can be really hard to see past how you know, living in your house day to day. So we have a little tool, for example, that's free to download from our website called a weekly tracker. So it's just a little book that we encourage people to fill in and just track how they use the house over the course of the week.
What kind of insights would you get from that?
Well, it was really funny because I met a lady at a talk about a year ago, and she came up and said, oh, I used the tracker, it was wonderful. And she said that what it did was their mornings were a nightmare in the house. I think she had 2 teenage kids, and herself and her husband both worked. And what they realized by filling out the tracker was that the coffee machine was directly above the cutlery drawer. So while she was standing there trying to make her coffee, everybody was bumping into her and pushing her out of the way and stuff, but they hadn't even realized this. They just thought, we just argue in the mornings. So the simplest of things, by moving that coffee machine, their mornings were just completely transformed. So it is those tiny things that you mightn't even notice, but this will help you pick up. And what we found as well, Gwen, is that by going through that kind of analysis with our clients, that sometimes they don't even need to build anything. It's just a simple reconfiguration will give them all the space that they need, because so many people have rooms in their houses they just don't even use, you know. So just looking at it through a different pair of eyes can be really helpful for people.
Yeah, that new fresh lens, I suppose, shows, you know, you see things that people are living in and constantly don't notice. You know, it's like something that's left in the same corner all the time. It just gets to be there, and that's where it is, where in actual fact, if you really considered it, I suppose, like that coffee machine, should it be there and how does it work? So it's really insightful, isn't it, to get those little tidbits. As you know, we have a big art auction at the moment, a lovely silent art auction on our website, and you have a piece of art behind you. Do you think art is important, Denise, in interiors?
Yeah, I think art's really, really important. So, you know, we've done schemes where the entire concept has been based around a particular piece of art that clients would like to use in the space. And it's the one way to add, you know, color, but also to add personality to a home. And I think that is just so important, that the house reflects the people that are living in it. So art is such a wonderful way to do it. And it's such an amazing investment. I think particularly at the moment, you know, if we're looking at some of the Irish artists and the work that they're producing, just some amazing pieces that you can start to build up a little collection and really enhance your living spaces.
And would you move it around then, Denise, as they grow, or do you think it should be a specific piece in a specific room?
Well, no, I think that's the lovely thing, is that you can move them around. Like I was in a friend's house recently, and he's an incredible collection of art, but he was saying that he moves them around every few years. And, you know, so he had one particular piece in his bedroom, but that used to live in their hall. And then he says, I am one that's in the living room that he's going to move into the bedroom. And it just means that they get to enjoy the pieces in a totally different way. And that's the beauty of it, really. And you can totally refresh and revamp a room by just swapping the art around. So, you know, it's a great way to add impact to your home.
I have a client as well who trades them up and down as they're going. So they buy new emerging artists all the time, and then then they sometimes trade them on, or they move them around different spaces in the house. But they're one of them collects sculpture and the other one collects art. So it's quite interesting, But it's really good to see the way they kind of start and then grow and move and change. So it is always increasing and changing, which is lovely. You pick paint colours as well. How does that work out when you've actually gone and designed fabulous ranges? So what do you look for when you're picking those colours, Denise?
Well, you know, for me, like when I was first approached to do it, I kind of sat down and thought to myself, why is it that I keep gravitating back to certain colors and never go near others? And what I realized, Gwen, was that there is sort of almost like an earthiness to a lot of the shades that I was working with, and actually a sort of almost like a green pigment in a lot of them. So I don't mean that all of them looked green, but what's really good about that when you're picking paint is that it tends to work really well with the kind of light that we get in Ireland. So it's a very soft light. You know, we don't get those searing bright days. So that's why some of the amazing, vivid, bright colors that you would see in the likes of Barcelona or, you know, California look amazing. But if you try and bring them into an Irish climate, they just look completely wrong. You know, they don't work at all. So I think going for those lovely, almost muted versions of different colors work really well. As I said, the nice kind of underlying greeny tone, and steering clear of those pinky peachy shades, because they're not that comfortable to live with. So.
And if you were to give your 20-year-old self some advice, or, you know, a new emerging architect, what would that be?
Well, I think one of the best things I ever did was getting out of the country. So I lived in New York, I lived in London, and honestly, that definitely laid the foundations and inspired me to do what I'm doing now. Because, you know, at the time when I was in Ireland, it was a very small pool of designers and architects. And really, when you go to these other places, it just opens up your mind to so many new possibilities. So I just think travel is so important. Other than that, I would say probably trust your gut and go for it, you know, rather than seeking the opinion of so many people. I think there's been times where you can be swayed, but actually only you know, and what's the worst that can happen, you know, so just go for it. If it doesn't work out, you just try something different.
Exactly. Yeah. That's really good advice, actually. And when you go on holidays or you travel now, do you get inspired?
Yeah, I find travel is incredible. And I think because you sort of naturally switch off to a certain extent from work, like it can be really, really hard. And I think that's what's most challenging about this time, that we're all sort of stuck, and yet we all seem to be working 24/7. So we all need a bit of downtime. But just having that downtime, it's the ideal way to start taking in new information, I suppose. And just the change of scene is so good. And, you know, seeing what they're doing in different countries, like there's always something that's totally different. So it's a wonderful way to get inspiration.
And do you sketch still, or are you all computer design, or what do you do?
Oh God, well, I remember when I used to work every summer when I was studying architecture, and I remember in the first office I worked in, there was one guy called Don, poor Don, and he would sit in the corner on the computer and everybody else was on drawing boards. And at the time they were introducing computers, and I was sort of saying, look, should I take this module or that module? And they said, oh my God, don't go near computers. And they pointed at Don and said, you could end up like him. Oh my God. So no, it was, it's unfortunately now all computers. We do still sketch though, you know, it's nice to sketch, but all of the work is produced in CAD and stuff like that. But yeah, sketching I find very therapeutic actually. It's a nice way to de-stress, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's a good way just to try and work out a few ideas before you're too committed to them as well, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
And tell me, flats or heels?
Oh my God. Well, for years I was in heels. I would be like ludicrous, and I walked everywhere, Gwen, and people would comment, you know, how did you go around in those heels? But now since lockdown, I don't think I've put on a pair of heels. I can't remember. And I do though for work usually. I would love my heels, but at the moment it's definitely flats. Definitely.
Good. And when you're writing your articles, where do you get the inspiration for them? Or, you know, is it you wrecking your head every week thinking, what do I write next? Or does it come to you? Where do you find that nuggets?
What I find is brilliant is, you know, it'll be a discussion with the client or maybe one of the girls at work, and it'll be a specific topic or something that's come up that week. So, you know, I guess I'm really lucky in that I'm kind of writing about what I do, you know, and what I'm working at. So there's always fresh content. And then since doing the Instagram live series that I've been running, that's been amazing, because the amount of questions from the followers and the people that I'm interviewing as well. So that's providing fantastic content too for articles. So yeah, from everywhere and anywhere really.
Good. And if an alien dropped down to see us all and wanted to see one building in Ireland, where would you bring him or her?
God, where would I bring him? The beautiful house, Lady Goulding's house, that's out in Wicklow, which is really sort of cantilevered over the lake. I don't even know if it's still there. Was it recently refurbished? And then the other one that I think is really beautiful is the library in Trinity. Like, that's a really, really amazing building.
And so many of them now you can go online and do tours of, you know, which is incredible.
Yeah.
I know the Epic Museum, Castletown House. There's lots of people go out and Google it that you can go to virtually now, which is a great opportunity, isn't it, to see some?
Yeah, no, really. And I think that's another thing that's happened out of all of this, you know, what's opened up online to give you access around the world. So it has been incredible. Yeah, really incredible.
Absolutely, because we can go abroad without going abroad. So maybe we can get that inspiration without leaving Ireland at the moment.
Yes, yeah.
And what's a typical day for you, Denise?
Jeepers, at the moment it's very mixed. I mean, before lockdown I spent a lot of time in my car, a lot of commuting, so I must say I don't miss that. I don't miss sitting in traffic at all. It'd be a real mix of meetings. At the moment all the meetings are online, a little bit of site work, which is nice. It's really nice to get out and see stuff. And see how things are progressing. So a little bit of a mixed bag at the moment. A little bit mixed.
And thinking of a job, do any of them ever keep you up at night? Do you ever have a moment where you're trying to work something out, or do you sleep soundly?
Oh, jeepers, no. I mean, you know, I think when you're running your own business, there's plenty of sleepless nights, and it can be over so many different things. You know, sometimes it's trying to work things out that you're trying to figure out. Other times it'll be, you know, things you're trying to remember that you're going to have to do the next day. So yes, you know, there's always something on your mind, I think, when you're running your own business.
And when is the stage that you really, you know, you're delighted? What is the thing that kind of motivates you the most? Is there a stage you get to in a job and you're like, yes?
Yeah, there's a few stages. Like, I love that initial stage. I love the concept stage, the coming up with the ideas, you know, even the way that you would maybe pitch those ideas to somebody and all of that. I also love the writing, you know, if I'm doing that side of things. But then on the projects, I think would have to be seeing the clients' faces when they see the end result, or coming back to visit them, you know, and just seeing the reaction. There's nothing more rewarding than that. That's really great.
And are you happy if the clients put their own stamp them on your, you know, your wonderful designs? You know, or are you happy if they add their little bits and pieces and move things around as life progresses?
I think it's great, you know, and we really encourage that from the beginning. So part of our process would be very much trying to get to know our clients, trying to understand what they like, because it is, you know, often when we're designing homes, it's their home, so it needs to reflect them. And it is lovely. Like, we've had clients over the years who will send us updates of things they've bought and stuff they've done, and it's amazing to see it and how proud they are of it. So no, I love that. I really love that.
Denise, thank you so much for the interview. I'd like to thank Optimise Design and Plain for sponsoring our talk today.
Thanks so much, Gwen. Lovely talking to you.